Sunday the 2nd of August 2026 was a significant day for the Auckland suburban rail network, as it saw the opening of two brand new railway stations on the Southern Line, namely Drury and Paerātā, thus restoring passenger services to these communities for the first time in 54 years. The new stations were built to serve growing residential developments, particularly Paerātā Rise. These days, it's an extremely rare thing, and almost unheard of, for brand new stations to be built in New Zealand, so I was quite curious to see Drury and Paerātā for myself. On Saturday the 1st of August, Auckland Transport held, what were effectively, open days at the two new stations, attended by the Minister of Railways and the Minister of Transport. Those are two separate people, by the way. Personally, I was more interested in being there on the first day of public train services, so I didn't come up on Saturday. The repainted AM144 was in attendance on that day, as she had brought government officials to the new stations, but unfortunately, she wasn't running on the 2nd of August. On the plus side, we did end up seeing 3 AMs from the brand new batch built in Mexico, including the newest unit in the class, AM1249. There were plenty of AT staffers on hand to help the passengers, and they were still offering to let people through the gates, even if those people weren't catching a train and were just there to have a look around. The new stations both have big car parks with spaces for 350 cars each, so you could argue that they were designed for yet more car dependency, which I don't necessarily like either, but to be fair, they have set it up so that connections are available to bus routes 42, 394 and 395 at Paerātā, or routes 376 and 384 at Drury. All of these buses call directly at the stations for an easy transfer, and if I recall correctly, AT set it up so that, if you catch a train within 30 minutes of leaving the bus at Drury or Paerātā, you won't get charged for the bus ride, only the train. Speaking of the trains themselves, and to any British viewers that happen to be familiar with the Class 331 or Class 397, you might recognise the sound of these traction motors.
Ko te traina whai ake nei, ka tau ki te pātahi, tētahi traina ka rere mā te aro o te tonga.
Here comes the train that will take us to Paerātā. This was AM428 on the 9:30 Britomart to Pukekohe service.
Tētahi traina ka rere mā te aro o te tonga ki Pukekohe. He traina tēnei e toru o na waka.
The next train arriving at platform 2 is a Southern Line service to Pukekohe. This is a 3-carriage train.
I have never had a particularly high opinion of the seats on these AMs, and more recently, I've now thought of them as being similarly uncomfortable to those on modern British trains like the Class 800, Class 197 and Class 777. For reference, I was using an AT hop card to pay for this journey from Drury to Paerātā and back, and I was only charged $3 for the round trip. The Southern Line's off-peak and weekend train frequency is every 20 minutes in each direction, with an increase to every 10 minutes at peak times. At present, the Britomart to Pukekohe service is still branded as the Southern Line, but it will become the South City Line whenever the City Rail link finally opens. At that point, trains coming up from Pukekohe will branch off towards Grafton and go round the CRL loop through Mount Eden, Karangahape, Te Waihorotiu and Britomart before returning to Newmarket. In other words, The South City line will effectively be Auckland's own equivalent of the City Loop in Melbourne, Australia. As an aside, Drury and Paerātā are not the only new stations to open in New Zealand in my lifetime. The first was Rotokauri down in Hamilton, with this station having been built in the early 2020s specifically for Te Huia. In recent history, the Pukekohe to Papakura section of the North Island main trunk was notable for being the last holdout of the ex-Perth ADL class diesel multiple units, which were initially brought over in 1993 as a low-cost solution to replacing locomotive-hauled trains. Following the Auckland network's major revival and the introduction of electric trains, the ADLs were confined to a shuttle service between Papakura and Pukekohe from 2015 to 2022. In those days, passengers had to change trains at Papakura. It wasn't until February 2025 when the AM electric trains finally started running to Pukekohe, and for the longest time, there were 0 intermediate stations between Pukekohe and Papakura. Now that Drury and Paerātā are open, one wonders which section has now become the candidate for the title of longest distance between two stations on the Auckland network. My guess would be Britomart and Orake, but I could be wrong. In any case, there is one more station left to be opened between Papakura and Pukekohe. The station in question is Ngākoroa, but that's not due to open until 2027. Ngākoroa was originally going to be called Drury West, and one wonders why the name was changed. After a short journey, lasting the better part of 6 minutes, we made it to Paerātā. Paerātā station is noticeably different from Drury, in the sense that, at present, it's effectively in the middle of nowhere, not to mention a significant distance from the current extent of the Paerātā Rise development. I dare say it would be quite a trek if you were walking or cycling to the new station from that development. A whole new road was built to link the station with the nearby State Highway 22, which also involved the construction of a roundabout at a new intersection. I dare say that both stations were built with future-proofing in mind, which would explain the current odd setting for Paerātā. In any case, I like the artwork that's been integrated into the overbridge, as it reminds me of what you can see at the rebuilt Pukekohe station, although you can't really get any good shots of the track from up here unless you do what I did and try placing the camera right up against the little holes. The station has entrances on both sides, although this entrance on Platform 1 is currently useless as there isn't a road that connects with this side of the station. I randomly decided to record a demonstration of the lift, or elevator, down to Platform 1 at Paerātā, that being the platform for northbound trains to Britomart. At present, one thing you can't really miss is the smell of these lifts. It's reminiscent of a new car smell, if you catch my drift. Ordinarily, I don't film lifts, and the last time I did was back in April 2025, when I saw the unique inclined lift at Greenford Station in England. Here comes another train on her way to Pukekohe. This was AM 1236, and she happens to share her number with the preserved JB steam locomotive.
The next train arriving at platform 2 is a Southern Line service to Pukekohe. This is a three-carriage train.
After watching the little CRRC electric buses for a while, we went back down to the platform and waited for AM 1236 to come back from Pukekohe. But first, another Mexican-built train showed up on a southbound service. This unit was AM 1170. Aside from slight changes to the external Auckland Transport logo, and the addition of those little "This train is 100% electric" decals next to the doors, there isn't much difference between these Mexican-built AMs and their older classmates built in Spain. However, the Mexican-built units are equipped with USB charging points, something that I'm pretty sure you won't find on their older classmates. Or at least not yet. One thing that you will find aboard all AMs is this line diagram showing the Auckland suburban network, and for some reason, the Northern Busway is shown there too. This map will significantly change whenever the City Rail link finally opens. And that's pretty much it for my look at the brand new stations at Drury and Paerātā. At this point, it's exciting to see major investment in any part of New Zealand's railway network, even if it's just in the Auckland suburban area. Although I'm generally impressed by the new stations, and think that they'll be very beneficial to their respective communities, there is at least one thing that I feel could be improved. Depending on the angle of the sun, it can be difficult to read the platform departure screens at these new stations, so I would suggest moving the screens to a spot where you could still clearly read them, even when the sun is staring the station in the face. I have some thoughts on the way in which modern Auckland station information signs are laid out, but I'm saving that discussion for an eventual video on the City Rail link. As a bonus, to close out this video, I will include 2 catches from the Sutton Road level crossing, not far north of Drury Station. This was the first time I had ever gone trackside at this particular crossing,